Off the eastern shore of a small volcanic island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, there is a city that should not exist. Not because it's old, plenty of ancient cities are old, but because of where it sits. Not on land, not beside the water, on top of a coral reef in the open sea, built stone by stone across 92 artificial islands. This is Archive of the Ancients, and today we're looking at Nan Madol, a name that means the spaces between, a reference to the canals that lace the ruins together like the streets of a drowned metropolis. Outsiders gave it other names when they found it, the Venice of the Pacific, the eighth wonder of the world. Names that don't quite capture how strange this place really is once you understand what it took to build it. The walls of Nan Madol are made almost entirely of columnar basalt, long, naturally hexagonal stone beams that form when thick lava cools slowly and cracks into geometric pillars, the same process behind places like the Giant's Causeway. Individual columns here weigh anywhere from 5 to 50 tons. One single stone log is over 7.5 meters long. Estimates for the total weight of stone moved into position across the whole site range from roughly 750,000 tons up toward nearly 2 million tons of basalt and coral fill.
Here's the part that stops researchers cold. The nearest matching basalt quarries sit inland. Some estimates place them 20 to 50 miles from the coast, across dense jungle and uneven volcanic terrain. Pohnpei had no draft animals large enough to haul stone of that size, no wheeled carts, no evidence of metal tools used anywhere in the shaping or moving of these columns. Whatever method got 50-ton stones from a hillside quarry to a reef in open water, it had to work again and again for generations without any of the tools we'd assume were required. Geologists have actually traced where specific stones came from using a technique called X-ray fluorescence, matching the chemical signature of columns at Nan Madol back to particular quarry sites on Pohnpei. The findings only deepen the puzzle. Builders seem to have favored basalt from one specific volcanic stage of the island over others, and the mix of source quarries changed as construction moved from one section of the city to the next, meaning this wasn't one continuous uniform building campaign. It was a project managed and adjusted across generations, with builders making deliberate choices about which stone to haul from where. Pohnpeian oral tradition offers its own answer, and it isn't logistics. According to the legend, two sorcerer brothers named Olisipa and Olosopa arrived by canoe from a mythical western land, seeking a place to build an altar to the god of agriculture. After failed attempts elsewhere, they succeeded off Temwen Island, and the story says they levitated the massive stones into place with the help of a flying dragon. When the elder brother died of old age, the younger became the first Saudeleur ruler, founding a dynasty that would claim this reef as its throne for the next several centuries. Strip away the dragon, and the historical outline is still remarkable. Archaeological dating suggests people were active on this reef flat as far back as the 1st or 2nd century AD, with the distinctive megalithic construction beginning around 1180 AD. From there, the Saudeleur dynasty used Nan Madol as their political and ceremonial capital, ruling over an estimated 25,000 people on Pohnpei until around 1628, using this stone city on the water as a stage to project absolute authority.
The city was carefully divided by function. One district, Madol Pao, held the administrative center and the ruler's residence, along with guest houses for visiting dignitaries. The other, Madol Pa, was dense with smaller islets built for ceremony, ritual, and burial, including a central royal tomb where the remains of generations of Saudeleur rulers were laid to rest in stone vaults. It was a capital engineered, quite literally, around the machinery of power and death. And yet for a city this ambitious, Nan Madol had one glaring flaw. It produced nothing. No fresh water source, no farmland. Every drop to drink and every meal eaten by the nobility and priests living on those islets had to be paddled in by commoners from the main island, day after day, for as long as the dynasty held on. That dependency may have written the ending. Around 1628, a foreign warrior named Isokelekele overthrew the Saudeleur dynasty and began a new political era. His successors, the Nemwarkis, initially tried to keep living at Nan Madol, but without the old dynasty's authority to command food and water from the mainland, they were suddenly responsible for gathering their own supplies. It didn't take long before that burden became unsustainable. The Nemwarkis eventually abandoned the reef city altogether and moved their seat of power back to the main island. Nan Madol was left standing, not destroyed, not erased, simply emptied, and the jungle and tide began the slow work of reclaiming it. To this day, many Pohnpeians still regard the ruins with a mixture of respect and unease, describing them as the domain of spirits and treating the site as something you visit with caution, not curiosity. Nan Madol isn't entirely alone in the region either. A smaller but similarly constructed complex called Lelu sits on the island of Kosrae, roughly 500 kilometers away, also built from stacked columnar basalt. Local tradition once held that Lelu's builders later migrated to Pohnpei and lent their expertise to the far larger project at Nan Madol. But radiocarbon dating has actually reversed that story. Nan Madol's megalithic construction appears to predate Lelu's, which suggests the techniques may have spread the other way, outward from this reef city rather than into it. Modern research hasn't closed the engineering mystery, but it has added new layers to it. Underwater surveys using photogrammetry and sediment analysis have found submerged retaining walls and altered canal systems, suggesting parts of Nan Madol once stood taller, and the shoreline has shifted significantly since the Saudeleur era. Rising sea levels are now actively eroding the site, which UNESCO recognized as a World Heritage Location in 2016, the same year that raised a new concern. Research and preservation may be racing against a coastline that won't wait. So the core question remains open. No pulleys have been found, no evidence of wheels, animal labor, or metal tools has ever turned up at the site. Whatever system the Saudeleur really used to move stones weighing as much as 50 tons across miles of jungle and open reef, it worked precisely enough to build a functioning capital city, and thoroughly enough that the details of the method itself never survived to be written down. Was it lost engineering knowledge erased when the dynasty fell? Brute force labor on a scale we've underestimated? Or something else entirely that oral tradition simplified into a story about sorcerers and a dragon? Let us know your theory in the comments. And if you want more stories of ancient mysteries still waiting to be solved, subscribe to Archive of the Ancients.